Zuber and Company, fire forensic experts and forensic engineers. Seeking answers from ashes. Seeking answers.
All units, maintain distance. We're getting a collapse on the north side.
Okay, let's talk about a story that all comes down to two numbers. And the gap between them, a massive 6.5 crore rupees. On one side, you have a business that's been absolutely devastated by a fire. On the other, you have insurance investigators looking at the claim and, well, scratching their heads. That gap sparked a legal fight that went on for over a decade, all the way to the Supreme Court. So, let's break it down.
All right, so here's our first number, just shy of 7 crore rupees. This is what Swarna Motors, a vehicle parts company, told their insurer they lost when their warehouse went up in smoke. It's a huge amount, right? It's the figure they said would make them whole again after the disaster.
And then there's this number, less than 49 lakh rupees. This is what investigators could actually prove was lost, not based on what was said, but on cold, hard, physical evidence they found in the rubble. That difference between these two numbers, that is the entire story.
So yeah, that's the central mystery we're looking at today, a 6.5 crore rupee gap. Where did all that supposed value go? Was this just a massive, honest mistake in the accounting, or was something else going on entirely? Let's dig in.
Okay, let's set the scene. It's the night of October 12th, 2013. A fire, they say it was from a short circuit, just rips through the Swarna Motors warehouse in Panipat. The damage is, catastrophic. It doesn't just destroy the auto parts inside, it also takes out most of the company's business records, which were stored right there on site.
And get this, the company moves incredibly fast. In just 48 hours, they've somehow calculated their entire loss and slapped a formal claim on the insurance desk for nearly 7 crore rupees. They're looking for a full payout on their policy. But as you can imagine, that speed raised a few eyebrows.
Now, of course, filing a claim is just step one. The real work is in the verification. So the insurance company does exactly what you'd expect them to do. They bring in an independent professional, an insurance surveyor, to figure out what was really lost in that fire.
And you have to understand, a surveyor's job isn't to take anybody's word for anything. They are impartial fact finders. Their whole purpose is to find hard, verifiable proof, not just that something bad happened, but what the exact value of the loss was. And this right here, this slide just lays out the entire conflict perfectly. On the one hand, Swarna Motors provided things like Excel sheets and some old purchase invoices. But what the surveyors needed was something much more detailed, much more reliable. Things like stock registers that track every single item coming in and going out. Without that specific paper trail, how can you possibly prove that an invoice from last year is for a part that was actually in the warehouse on the night of the fire? You really can't. So the investigation kicked off, and this is where that 6.5 crore rupee gap really starts to come into focus. As the surveyors started digging through the documents they were given, some pretty big red flags started popping up.
And here's the really wild part. These weren't just the findings from one investigation. This happened twice. The first surveyor hit all these dead ends. And then, years later, a second surveyor, appointed by the Supreme Court, came to the exact same conclusions. The fundamental proof, the paper trail you'd need to justify a 7 crore rupee claim, it just wasn't there. It never was.
I mean, listen to the wording here. This isn't just a polite disagreement. The second surveyor's report literally calls over 6.5 crores of the claim hypothetical. That's the professional legal way of saying this number looks like it was just made up.
So you might be asking, where did that much smaller number, the 49 lakhs, even come from? Well, it came from the stuff the surveyors could physically see, touch, and identify in the wreckage of the warehouse. It was the only part of the loss that was actually real and tangible. Everything else, from their expert point of view, was just unproven.
Okay, so you've got this huge gap between the claim and the evidence. You know what's coming next, right? A legal battle was pretty much inevitable. The insurance company, holding the surveyor's report, rejected the claim. But Swarna Motors wasn't about to give up. This wasn't the end of the story. It was really just the beginning of a legal roller coaster.
Just look at this timeline. It shows how long this whole thing dragged on. Years go by. Then, Out of nowhere, in a pretty stunning twist in late 2023, a lower court actually sides with Swarna Motors and orders the full 7 crore payout. But the insurance company immediately appealed to the Supreme Court, which just slammed the brakes on the whole thing. They called the lower court's decision a clear error and ordered a brand new survey, which, as we already know, found the exact same problems as the first one.
So after all the appeals, a second investigation, and more than a dozen years since that fire, where did this all finally land?
The final judgment in 2026 was absolutely decisive. The Supreme Court sided with the consistent, evidence-based reports from both surveyors. It ruled that Swarna Motors had completely failed to prove its case and that the nearly 7 crore rupee claim was, in the court's own very powerful word, exaggerated.
So in the end, the court said the only valid part of the claim was the amount that could be proven from day one. The insurance company was ordered to pay the 49 lakhs, plus some interest and legal costs. But what about the other 6.5 crore rupees? Poof, it evaporated, because there was never any real proof it existed in the first place.
So what can we all take away from this whole saga? Well, a few big things. First, the burden of proof is always on you, the claimant. It's not enough to say you lost something. You have to prove you lost it. Second, for any business out there, meticulous records aren't just good housekeeping, they are your absolute lifeline. And third, this case shows that an independent surveyor's report carries enormous weight in court, and trying to inflate your claim, it's a really, really bad idea.
And that leaves us with one final, kind of sobering thought. Just take a second and really ask yourself this question. Because as the Swarna Motors case shows us so clearly, the difference between what you think you've lost and what you can actually prove you've lost, well, that can be a difference of millions or even crores of rupees.